Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I hope you can hear me. Just a thumbs up if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so as people have said, my name is Yusuf. So just to introduce myself, I've been at Stellenbosch for a while. I'm not going to say how long, but it has been a while. So for this afternoon, I'll do my best to try and explain to you a systematic evidence synthesis search strategy. And I want to say it right from the start that today's session is not going to be about a systematic review or a scoping review for that matter. It's only going to entail how you're going to go about in developing a search strategy that you can use as part of your evidence synthesis. So I just want to highlight that right from the start. So most of it that we will concentrate on this afternoon will be about the searching strategy. But to just to get started, just want to see, why is this not working? Maybe I should do this. There we go. Okay, so how do you go about in developing and implementing a search strategy for a scoping or systematic review? Now, if you can see from the picture, for some people, it makes sense because they know where they're going. If they take a certain route or path, they know where they're going, they'll end up safely at their destiny. For others, it is a nervous period because they don't know which way to go, what route to take, and we get that most when students come to us for search strategies or for systematic reviews or scoping reviews. And I take it that it is new to a lot of people, especially if you're in the social sciences. And for today, we would like to concentrate on the social sciences and not really focus on medicine and health sciences. Because with systematic reviews and scoping reviews, inevitably started with in medicine and health sciences. But we do want to give other disciplines also a chance into to doing a scoping review systematically, but also understanding it and be comfortable in doing something like that. So just to get back to the picture, so you might end up at your destiny. To some people, you might get lost along the way by taking the wrong route from here. So I just want to point that out, that along the way, there are help available. So what I want to also talk about is, as we go through the process, is there's a lot of potholes along the way. But if you follow the process, you can avoid those potholes. You can avoid wasting time. You can avoid ending up not completing your research. So do go out and seek help from your faculty librarian when it comes to a search, and I'm going to talk about that later on. When it comes to a search or developing a search or knowing to go to need to know what databases to use, but I'll touch on that as we go along. But where do you start? So you need to start somewhere. Okay. Again, if you look back at that intersection, what route do you take? So if you know what route to take, you know where to start, and that is sort of half of the way that you then can go about. But the beginning of a research project, it often brings excitement in the opportunity to explore something new. So for many, that is accompanied by nervousness. And so in getting started with a new project, so as I talked about the road ahead, so you're uncertain in what lies ahead. And especially if you're early career, or if you're new to scoping review or systematic reviews, and that is human nature. Okay, but you can learn skills along the way when you try something new, and how to navigate this process is also going to help you. But if you know how to do it and what to do, and you have that assistance from experts in the field, then your road should be easy to get to your destiny. So There are a lot of places, so you get the external places of science, so you get limited time, you have funding issues, so you have to finish in a certain time frame. Resources is limited. There's also professional pressure from your supervisors or your line managers that you have to publish or perish. So all of those factors then contribute to your nervousness, and it's also, as you see, the daunting task ahead of you. So even for seasoned researchers, so researchers that have been done this for a while, so every new research project for them is also something new that they have to discover. But to come back to this, so developing a search strategy for a scoping review, just want to move this a little bit up here so I can go see. So developing a search strategy for a scoping review systematically involves defining a research question, and come back to that. Identifying key concepts and then translating them into appropriate search terms. So the research question here becomes very, very important. And I want to highlight this for you. So just like you have a house, the foundation, we all know that, to use this example, that is the most important thing. So if the foundation is not solid, then the rest of the walls and the roof and all of those things, it's compromised. So really, when you want to do a systematic review, scoping review, you have to start at your question. So a research question serves as the foundation for your project. And I want you to focus purely on your research question when you want to develop a search strategy. So going back to your research question, please go have a look at it. How rigorous is it? What is it that you want to say? All of those things that is important as part of the research process. And then later on, we will try to identify relevant databases. We will then also try to refine the search terms for you and adapting those for the different databases as we go along. So defining your question, I just want to minimize this. So defining your research question with a framework. So the first step of a systematic scoping review is to develop a clear, well-formed, and I've emphasized that you have to have a good question, and that's going to make it easier for you to develop the key concepts in your research question. And then the search will then become ultimately the evidence, and all of those things will become more straightforward for you. But there's a particular criteria or a tool or whatever you want to call it that you can use as part to sort of build on or strengthen your research question. And that is, some of you may know about it, and that is called the FINER criteria. So it's FINER. So what does the FINER criteria stands for? It's the how feasible is your research? Is it interesting? How novel it is? Does it comply with ethics, and how relevant it is? But if we talk about the feasibility, so if the feasibility is got to do with, are you capable of addressing the question with the evidence available? So keep that in mind and I'm going to spend a minute or two so with the FINER criteria. With the feasibility, have you done a preliminary search to identify a sensible boundaries for your review? Another question you might ask, if it's feasible, will your review question potentially retrieve unmanageable quantities of information? And the last thing there about the feasibility is your question answerable with existing evidence? And that ties in with a systematic or scoping review, that last one, for the feasibility. If you go a little bit further to the next one, do you find your topic interesting? That is, you as a person, and will other people find it interesting? So that is something that you're going to spend a significant time or effort on in your review. It's important to you, and you are interested in the review question. Why are you interested in this particular review question? In terms of the novelty, does your question addresses meaningful gaps in the knowledge? And that comes in with scoping reviews. A scoping review is trying to address a gap in the literature, and that sort of ties into that. Another novelty is, have you checked if there is a similar synthesis already published? We'll deal with that also later on. And have you checked if there's an ongoing review in Prospero? And that is for systematic reviews. You can also then check Cochrane for that matter, but we will touch later on those things. And then the ethical issues. Does your question have any political implications that may potentially broaden the health inequality or any other phenomenon that is out there? So just think about the ethical issues around that. And how relevant is your research going to be? Have you consulted with stakeholders in your field to define the scope, the scope of your focus of your research? So have you talked to a supervisor, other people that are in the subject field that you want to do the research in? Just gauge on what they say about the topic. Are your findings of your review relevant enough to facilitate others' forthcoming directions? So those are the finer criteria that you can sort of use, sort of, as I said, just to enhance or make your research question a proper, solid research question. So everything starts there. And I can't emphasize more, put more emphasis on this, that your research question is the most important thing, apart from the search strategy that you're going to do later on. So when you want to do, and we've touched on the finer criteria, so some of the elements we will talk in detail now. So before you finalize your question, and you've come up with the question, you've used the finer criteria, and now before you finalize your question, there's a couple of things that you have to do, and we touch on it. So in order for you to undertake the searches, before you do the searches, just check your key concepts again, that you have the key concepts, whatever your research focus is. Develop an initial list of search terms. So you can talk to people, your supervisor or anybody in the field, just gather some search terms from them. And then if there are potential numbers of results, so do they foresee that you're going to get a lot of articles for this specific research topic? And then I can't see the question, but I take it somebody will look at that. And then check if the review is relevant, been done, or is registered to be done. So we talked about Prospero earlier, as I said. For systematic reviews, you can look at Cochrane, you can look at Prospero, Epistemonicos. For systematic reviews, and we'll come back to this now. And for scoping reviews, you can look on Open Science Framework and the JBI. JBI, you need access to get into the JBI institution. But what does this entail is, before you start anything, in order for you not to reinvent the wheel, you have to go check with these institutions or places to see if a systematic review or a scoping review has already been done. So that is the long and the short of it. And before you start embarking on putting effort in and time in to start something, you just go and check. And that is sort of the precursor for any research that you're going to do. So we're still talking about the research question here. Just to finalize it, but here, what your research question here is this is all pertaining to your research. We haven't started the searches yet, so this is just to make sure that in order for you to really start with something, to put an effort and go in before you finalize it, that you go and see if something has not already been done. So that's why this exercise, so the preliminary search sort of becomes important. Then in order to start, it is advisable that you start planning your search. So if you go onto the internet, there's a lot of worksheets out there that you can use in order and see which one works best for you. That sort of will help you the best. Just go and see what kind of worksheets are available on the internet for you to start planning your search. And that is just in order for you to put some keywords down or key concepts down, look at other searches or terms that comes up, and then you sort of plot it, that down on your worksheet and sort of flash that out for you. So this will also will have to consider factors such as where and what and how to search using your inclusion criteria. So just think about what is the type of articles that you're going to look at, the data or the information that you want from the papers. And if you have any sample papers, your supervisor may have given you a couple of papers to read. And now you can already see, identify from those papers, you can already gather some important key concepts from there, and also keywords as well. My colleagues, this is just, I want, the reason why I say highly recommended, please consult with your faculty librarian for advice on which databases to use for your searches. What we've seen in the literature and also with other people that's been doing this is that, and that's why I have that sort of a narrative right at the front. In order for you just to jump in, you're going to waste a lot of time. Rather seek help. Go to your faculty librarian. Ask them, I have this preliminary search. I'm interested in this research. Please recommend some databases that I can go and search, and then you can just do some quick and dirty searches in a database just to see what is out there by just dumping a few keywords and phrases in there. And that will just help you for your preliminary search, okay? Because your faculty librarian will know best what databases for your specific research focus or topic or your question will be the best databases where you will find information. Okay, so that is why I say it's highly recommended that you consult your faculty librarian in this regard, just to advise you on the databases that you can use or go and look at. So the tools for planning your search. I'm going to come to, I want to say a little bit about the tools just now, but there are some tools and filters that you can use. That is all now when you sort of already now started to have a topic, or you see you're going to use this research question. I'll give you some examples later on. So I don't have a specific example, but I have 3 different examples that we're going to look at for your search. But there are some filters that you can use. They call hedges or search blocks or search strategies, whatever, that you can use that up. They sort of preliminary, I don't know what the English word is now, but is those sort of searches that people have developed. There's the word, so developed, that you can use. They've done some searches within the databases already, and they've come up with these filters or hedges that you can use. A lot of them are validated. There are a lot also that are not validated, and I want to just put it out here. If you're going to use it, please make sure that the one that you use is for that specific database. Because you can't, there's not, and we're going to come to the searches later on as well. There's no one search that's going to fit all the databases. So there's no one filter that's going to fit all the databases. So they've developed for different databases, they've developed these search filters or hedges, and that you can use for those different databases or platforms. So please be careful when you use it. If you add that to your search, you might get 0 results because that specific filter or hedge is not for that database that you're using. Right, so there are a couple of tools that you can use. Some call it AI tools or just tools that you can use. or these text mining tools. They, although it's for a lot of them are for medicine and health, there are it's a way you can use for social sciences or any other sciences as well. But I just want to caution you about this. Sometimes it's not that accurate, especially if you are new to these tools. You might waste a lot of time by going in here and maybe think it's some sort of AI tool that can help you. If you know how to use these tools, then by all means go about and use these tools to make it a bit shorter in terms of gathering sort of phrases or keywords for your topic, and see it maybe as a Google search where you can just see for your background information, for your understanding. Then go ahead and use these tools. I'll say later on something about AI. I'll know that Kirchner mentioned tomorrow in the program there's going to be a lot about AI and searches. But in order for you to use those tools, you have to know how to use it, because this impacts on your search and the results you're going to get. Okay? And just keep that in mind when you use any of these tools. So there's a Terra one. I know that Yale Mesh Analyzer is one for to develop mesh terms. PubMed, PubReminer is one, and then there's the Polyglot, and there's a lot of others. I think I have a slide later on where you can go and look at all of these tools that can assist you. Right. So the primary databases becomes then very important. So again, I highlighted here that you go talk to your faculty librarian about those databases, because these databases, they differ from one another, especially when it comes to the search. It's important that you understand and know that you can't take the one search that you have and then put it in all the other databases. I've deliberately make use of 3 different databases just to illustrate to you how they can differ from one another. And that is very important, why you then have to consult with your faculty librarian in terms of searches and in terms of what databases to use. Now, for this instance, I would maybe just make a comment. So say, for instance, your research, it's a multidisciplinary research in social sciences, then Scopus, EBSCO, depends on what database, sub-databases in EBSCO, Web of Science, so those will then become important to you, those multidisciplinary databases. But if you in medicine and health sciences, then PubMed obviously becomes important. If you're in nursing, then in EBSCO, CINAHL becomes important. But if your research is pertaining to mental health, then you're going to consult the other databases, but specific databases then become important, which is then PsycInfo, because that's where you're probably going to find the bulk of your information. So as you can see, these different databases, and you not going to know which database to use, and that's why I say it's highly recommended that you then make use of a faculty librarian to guide you into what database to use for your specific research or topic. There's many other databases out there that you also can consult. So this is a question we often get. So this is a question we often get, is how many databases need to be searched for your review? So I have examples of a systematic review, a scoping review, also, a systematic review, a one for qualitative, and also a scoping review examples that I'm going to demonstrate just now. But there's no real answer. The short answer, it all depends on a lot of factors. So are you doing a scoping review, a systematic review? What type of review are you going to undertake? And that becomes important. The expectations you have, your disciplinary area, where you want to publish, all of those things, And also, like I focused on now just earlier, is whether your topic is multidisciplinary. Okay, and I've covered this now, so not one database can cover all the literature. So you can't use the Scopus and Web of Science if you're in medicine and health sciences and you don't make use of PubMed for that matter. Okay, again, to highlight again, if you're in nursing, you have to make use of something like CINAHL, which becomes important for nursing. I know that in engineering there are some other databases, or in music there are some databases specifically for those disciplines. So that becomes then important. There is no golden number. And it all, as I say, depends on the research focus of your topic or your question. I'll talk later a bit about on how many articles or results, what number is a good number, but I'll touch on that a bit later on. So this is purely about how many databases you need to be searched. One thing I want to say, for the scoping review, so remember the scoping review is a broad question, okay? So you want to find a gap in the literature. And in order to do that, you need to search as widely as possible. So widely as possible doesn't mean you search each and every database that Stellenbosch University has access to. Because with Scopus and Web of Science, those two databases are sort of your biggest databases. It's sort of is your gold standard in terms of databases for multidisciplinary searches or subject area, but it also takes a lot of your Wiley and your other databases. Those are already there. Okay, so and then for a systematic review, you will then have to maybe look at something like Cochrane to see what other systematic reviews has been done, or other databases, but it really depends on your research focus. Okay, so it's best to practice to search using both your subject headings and your keywords. So I'll come to the subject headings later on. I'll come to the mesh. I'll just quickly talk about the mesh, because systematic and scoping reviews sort of developed from medicine and health science side. So I'll touch on that as well. But there's to develop your keyword search, you need to follow sort of a 3-step process. So you identify your keywords. Then combine the alternative keywords with your connectors. Like I'm going to talk about the Boolean operators also now. And then you sort of you simplify your search with truncation or wildcards and phrases. And here is where your faculty librarian is going to come in also, is to help you with these truncations, wildcards, and phrase searches. So if we look there at the bottom of the screen, you'll see that some of the terminology that's been using. So just this is just some examples that are out there. Whether the spelling, so in the British spelling, and you have the American spelling, behavior, and there's labor. So just keep those in mind, that you have to use both. But there are wildcards or truncations that you can use to do that. But you need a specialist in order to. Otherwise, if you're sort of unsure how to do it, then just use both to search both in your keywords or your phrases. The same with physical therapy or physiotherapy. Then the singular and the plural. Some databases are intuitive. You can, if you use the one like child, it will also pick up children. Some of them we come across. Acronyms is also important. I would advise that with any word, you can use the acronym with it as well. And I'm going to come back to that one. The mesh terms we're going to talk about, and then the reference text that you're going to look for alternative terms. But in terms of coming back to these different types of terminologies and spelling and all of these generic and acronyms, why is that important? Because globally. This databases you're going to search, it's globally. So the US, they talk about other things, but they're meaning the same thing in another part of the world. Okay, so those kind of things is why you need to have all of these as part of your search, that you consider all of these terminology, the singular, plural, spelling, and all of those, and make it as part of your search strategy. Okay, so when you develop your search, these are all the things that you have to look at. So for my colleagues, this is they sort of know all of these already, but for those of you who don't know, the or, and, or not, we call them Boolean operators. So what this actually mean is, you see in other parts of the world, they talk about connectors, but you just connect your different searches or search strings with one another. But I always say, or you can look at it this way. So if you use an or, you sort of expanding your search. Okay, and I'm going to come back to that one as well. And I'm going to come back to the and as well. So, and if you use an and, you sort of narrow your search down. Okay, you'll later see also in the examples that I'm going to use. And the not removes anything. So a lot of, if you are skilled search in the databases, then you can use the word not. So a lot of people will use not as with animals. They don't want animal studies, and they will say not, or they will use only, what is the other, it's omitting me now, language, not these other languages, or something like that. But in some databases, it actually tempers with what the results you're going to get. And I don't know, some people might have been successful. I've never been successful in using that because when I've used it, I also get animal studies somewhere in the studies as well. So I will then talk about it later as well, that you then revert back to your, just search anything and leave the not out. You don't use the not, because with scoping reviews and systematic reviews, you're going to do you are going to have an including, excluding criteria. And rather screen it in your screening process that you're going to do later on. Rather do it there instead of using the filters. That's just a personal opinion from my side, but it's also advisable from the JBI and the other institutes that rather screen instead of using the limiters. But we'll talk about that also later on. So in the same concept, so if you have a concept or with the phrases and keywords in between brackets, you're always going to use an or Boolean operator. But when you connect these search strings with one another, you will then use an and Boolean operator, because then it will narrow your search down. But that will become clear later on when we demonstrate the examples. This is the truncations, wildcards, and phrase searching. Just an examples. The examples there give you some sort of an idea that if you search nurse with an asterisk, those will find nurse, nurses, and nursing. The same with organization, the wildcards. If you put a quotation, what is that? That quotation, what is that mark there? Then it will go to organization. We'll find organization and organizations with the Z, and then the phrase search at the bottom. So phrase searches mean basically if you have one more than one word, then you will always put it in the quotation marks at the bottom, and then that will then search practice patterns of nurses. So that will go into the database, and the database will only search that for you. Then with the database thesaurus, you'll notice that for some databases, they will, when you make use of a certain database, they want you to use the thesaurus. And then with PubMed and Cochrane, they make use of medical subject headings, or the MESH terms as it's commonly known. Then we not have, you'll sort of come across in the literature, they talked about Embase. We don't have access to Embase, but Embase make use of Emtree. Psych Info, there's a thesaurus in Psych Info that you have to use. Sport Discus, Sonal and Eric use the subject headings and a thesaurus in Eric. So there you can see, if you're going to search any of these databases, then you have to make use of the thesaurus. So it's a combination search with your keywords that you have to go and find. Within the thesaurus, you'll have to find the subject headings or mesh terms to combine with your search. And I have a slide later on that can demonstrate that. Before we start with our own searches, I just want to talk about these frameworks. So we're going to use a framework to develop our searches. These are just other frameworks available. The PICO is the one that is used in systematic reviews. You can also use the PICOT with a T, as you can see there. And that on the right-hand side, it explains what does the PICO or the PICOT stand for. And then there's also the PICO with the E, or the PICOT with the E and the T at the end. And that's the second one there, and on the right-hand side, it explains the framework and what you're going to look at. I haven't come across the PIPO. I've seen here and there the Spice and the Spider. I haven't seen the Eclipse or the Pestle, but those are other frameworks. So if any of those can work for you, for your sort of focus, then you by all means use that. So let's then dive into a example. So if we look at an example, so this is a systematic review example. So we're going to identify some key concepts using a specific framework. So so this one is in medicine and health science, this example. So the framework we're going to use is a PICO framework, and this is a clinical question. So if you're not familiar with a systematic review in medicine and health sciences, so in medicine and health sciences, you have to answer a specific, or if you want to make use of or want to do a systematic review, you need to have you need to ask a specific question, either an intervention question most of the time, in order to do a systematic review. But from our example here is paleo diet more effective than the Mediterranean diet for weight reduction in obese adults? So if that is our research question, then we need to use the framework to develop our search. But first, we need to identify the elements in our question. So the P stands for our population, our patient. So if we look at the definition there, so what are the characteristics of the patient or the population? And what is the condition of or disease you are interested in? So if you look at that, then we sort of interested in, just from the question, that is obese adults. Okay, so that we can then take out from our population, and we can identify that because we're looking at obese adults. So we put that in there. Intervention or an exposure depends on which one. What do you want to do with the patient? Do you want to treat the patient? Any diagnostics? Observe, or you want to observe the patient? What is it that you want to do? So we're looking here. Is paleo diet more effective than the Mediterranean diet? So paleo diet becomes our intervention here. Then, in this instance, we do have a comparator. Most of the time, sometimes you don't have a comparator, then you just leave that out. But in this instance, we do have a comparator. So the comparator here, or the comparison, is what is the alternative to the treatment. So here we have the Mediterranean diet. So we want to see which one of the diet is the one better than the other one. So Mediterranean diet becomes our comparator. And what is the outcome? So what is it that we want to get out of this research? We want to see if there are any weight reductions in the people, in the obese adults. So that becomes then clear that we can then flesh out from our research topic that this is what we want to do and this is what we look at. Right. So now to put this into a search, we're going to apply the PICO framework here. So the first part you'll see on top where I have the PICO, I've just put in, just to make it easy, you're going to put obese, you can use the obese diet, I'm sorry, obese adults. So that is our patient, right? We're going to flash that out now. That becomes on our first string, right? Our third string, that one. Then we put an and in between. So now it's important. We're starting now with the Boolean operators, okay? Then we're going to have our paleo diet, which is the intervention. We put another and in between. And we have the Mediterranean diet. We put an and in between, and then we have the weight reduction. So that is just to flesh out the PICO, okay? Then the one below that, we sort of now added more keywords or phrases to our patient or population. I have highlighted the and Boolean operator between the search strings, so you can see we've added more keywords to our paleo diet, we've added more to our Mediterranean diet, and we add more to our reduction. Okay, so this now sort of expanding within the concept. So within the patient or population concept, you can see we expanded obese adults, obese young adults, adults or young adults. Okay, and that becomes now our population. If you have more keywords or phrases you want to add that you think is important, then you put that in. Okay, and then you go to the intervention part, the paleo diet, which is also a Paleolithic diet, and then I've added those because those are part of the diet that they've consumed, okay, or what is the diet is known for. Then you add all of those in there, and then the Mediterranean as well, and then the weight reduction. So the weight reduction, we can also look at weight loss or weight change or weight cycling, which is also something that we can use. So there you have a search string. But what I want to say in this instance is, this is sort of a general search, okay? And this is a type of search that you'll notice that I don't have any quotation marks, I don't have any wildcards, I don't have any truncation, nothing near. Because this is a type of search that you want to put in your protocol, because it's sort of a general search. It's not database specific, okay, that you're going to put into a database. This is just when you have your protocol or your proposal, you can have this search thing in here, and you can then say this is, because if somebody reads it, it just makes sense to them. This is the framework you used, and this is the search that you've developed from that framework. And that sort of gives them an idea of what keywords you've used and what the phrases or keywords or concepts you're looking at. Okay. I wouldn't add, we're going to do a specific search now, or there's an example of a specific search, but I just want to highlight something like that. I've added that at the bottom. It's important to add to the search strategy. So if this is a systematic review, then you will add randomized controlled trial RCT cohort studies or longitudinal studies. Reason is, for a systematic review, you're not going to look at qualitative or any of those studies. You want to look at what trials has been done, what cohort studies has been done. So those is going to be important when you do a systematic review. And then as part of the search, at the end, you will then add another search string with randomized controlled trial with cohort studies, and that will entail that you only pick up studies that you're interested in, and not qualitative and all of those. So that same search string I've now put into PubMed, and this is what a PubMed search will look at. Remember our earlier slide, we talked about the mesh terms, the thesaurus, or the vocabulary that you're going to use. So when you use PubMed, it's important then also that you then add mesh terms for each of these search strings that you have. So for the population, we're going to look at in PubMed, What mesh terms are there for adults? You're not going to find something for obese adults, but there are mesh terms for adults. Then you use that mesh term. And you can see I've highlighted in yellow just to make it easier for you, that is how you will then add it to your population or your patient. The first part there in yellow is adults or young adults, and that is your mesh terms. And this the same with the diet, Paleolithic. Important, I want you to look at the diet, Paleolithic, paleo. So I think I made a mistake there. But what that entails is, it's important, if it's a mesh term or a subject heading, you have to add it as is. So diet, Paleolithic, that is how the mesh term appears in PubMed, and you have to use it as is. I must certify that. I think I made a mistake there. The same with diet, Mediterranean in the third instance, the third yellow highlighted part there with the mesh terms. You will see that diet, Mediterranean. Something like that, you can't enter into Scopus or Web of Science. And you can't use that because this is database specific, and that's why I said this is a basic PubMed search that you can't use in any other database. So it's become important that you have a database specific search. All right, and right at the end, remember I talked about only searching for, if it's a systematic review, that you're only searching for randomized controlled trials, cohort studies, or any of those. And the last part that I highlighted there, that is a search that you'll find in PubMed, that is sort of a search developed by the National Library of Medicine for PubMed. But you can see they've used ors and ands in between, and sort of publication type and all of those, because they have tested this. And this is something that they recommend you use. And that will then help you finding only those studies, because you're not interested in any other studies. You're only interested in that kind of study. I must just look at the time, that we still have time for the other part of our presentation. Right, so here is one for qualitative studies. So if you're looking at the qualitative study, you can then, there's a PICO with the small letter O. So that stands for population interest or co-context. You can then use something like this. So for this example, we use what are the women's experiences with bullying in the workplace. So the population here would be women. The interest, what is the phenomenon you're interested in? So you're looking at the experience with bullying in the workplace, and then your context. So the context here also, and the same with the scoping review, the context normally it's a setting. Where does this take place? What kind of setting are you looking at? And in this place is the workplace, right? So the same here. This is for a qualitative study. The woman as part of the population, the intervention is bullying, or the interest, sorry, is bullying, and the workplace, or the context is the workplace. And then we can do sort of the same general search, and then you can then narrow it down also to qualitative studies, focus groups, or interviews. And again, this is just a general search that you can use. Right, so it's a qualitative study, a search that that you can use in Scopus. So women, this is just here I've just added some truncations and the quotation marks around the phrases if it's more than one word, and then the highlighted in yellow is the kind of studies that you're looking at that you can add as part of your search. Then for the scoping review, it's important that you go have a look at the Joanna Briggs Institute. They have a manual that you can look at. They have some free stuff on there. But if you want to make use of the frameworks and the stuff in the JBI itself, I think you will have to register on there, and if you want to make use and register with them to do a scoping review. But it is available there. But this is just to highlight for the scoping review that you're going to use a PCC framework as opposed to the others. This is pertaining to a scoping review that you look at the population or the participant, the concept, and the context. And that, as you can see, is different from a scoping review. Sorry, from a systematic review. Apologies. So here, the population, so we looking at the example that we have here is the use of artificial intelligence in higher education in low-income countries, lower middle-income countries. Question is, does students make use of AI in higher education in low and middle? So that is what we want to find out. So the population here will be then the students in higher education. And then the concept will then be your artificial intelligence. So we're looking at artificial intelligence. And as I say, the context is normally a cultural or a geographical setting. A lot of the scoping reviews are pertaining to a geographical area. So they're looking at low and middle income countries, or they're only looking at Africa. The moment you go more specific, the less sort of information you're going to get. So I think sometimes if you want to search globally, it's going to be a lot for your topic maybe, but if you can narrow it down to a specific region, then that will also help you just to focus on a specific region, and that becomes then in your context. So again, the same sort of example that you can use for general search, and then for a list of all the low-income, middle-income countries, I would advise that you go have a look at the WHO or the World Bank. There they have country list, what they deemed is low middle-income countries, and that you can add as part of your search if you want to focus on that. Right, so there's one here that I have maybe used for Eric as well. So this search I've used for Eric, and you can see what in Eric, you can then have, I've searched the thesaurus in Eric, and because this is about education, I've sort of looked at Eric, and you can see the subject or the source in Eric they use is the DE. I've highlighted them there, and then you add that as part of your search. Because remember, we talked earlier about that you need to add these thesaurus or mesh terms as part of, depending on the website, the database you're using. Right, so for the grey literature, normally you will look at websites, government reports, thesis and dissertations, any other reports, conferences, World Health Organization, World Bank, USAID. So for grey literature, you're normally going to target resources that are not publicly available, or that is not a database per se, but rather a website where you know you're going to find other information, but it's unpublished work. So grey literature falls under the unpublished work. So all the results you're going to retrieve from the different databases, you must export them then to a screening tool called Confidence Orion, and we'll sort of dive into Cadima just now, just to illustrate to you how Cadima works. Yeah, so if you follow those steps in those searches, then you will be able to find the results for yourself, data that you can look at. So what are you after? If you look at other systematic reviews, scoping reviews, you'll find within the scoping or the systematic review, you'll find a Prisma flow diagram. The Prisma flow diagram is what you're after when you use a screening tool, but when we sort of step back into the searches becomes important, because remember with your scoping and systematic reviews, it needs to be transparent and it needs to be reproducible. And by searching databases, you have to give evidence. Databases you have searched, you have to have a good search. You have to have the databases, how many articles articles or records you got from a specific database. What have you done with that? So you need to give evidence of all of those things. Then just quickly, I want to highlight something: artificial intelligence tools in evidence-based. I'd rather that you go read, and tomorrow. Tomorrow you can then also listen to the other speakers about AI. But clearly there's a lot of things still going on, that you can, I'll rather that you read those and maybe ask questions tomorrow for the experts about artificial intelligence and how to use that in the research, and not for systematic and scoping reviews for that matter. And there's a whole lot of other tools and that is available that you can use, make use of. Yeah, but that is just out there for you to go to. And these are the references for what I've looked at for this presentation. The colleagues, Kirchner or anybody is there, shall we go to Cadima and then do questions later on, or what do you suggest? Anybody there?
Yusuf, I think let's go into Cadima, and then when you're done, let's look at the questions then.
Okay, cool. So while I log into Cadima, so Cadima is like I said, like Covidence. So those of you who know, it's called like Covidence Ryan. So Covidence is a tool where you can screen, just like Ryan and Cadima. Covidence, you need to subscribe to, or the institution needs to subscribe to that. I don't have pricing or what it costs. But Stellenbosch University at the moment doesn't have access to Covidence. Ryan, I know, is free up to a certain point. If you want to maybe do other, go deeper in maybe with your project, go into Ryan and do other things, then I ask you then to subscribe. But Cadima is an open source free tool that you can use. It does the same as all the others. I haven't come across, I've been working with Cadima for a while now. I haven't come across any major issues that is alarming, but a lot of researchers have used Cadima successfully as we go along. Right, so Cadima, you just Google it, Cadima, you go in there, you create yourself a username and a password, and then off you go. You can then register your project. So on your far right hand side here, you go to Access Cadima, right? And then if you go slightly to the bottom, you don't go all the way to the bottom. Here is create new evidence synthesis. Okay, if you go right to the bottom, if you start here, all evidence in Cadima, this is other people's stuff that you cannot be interested in those. What you want to do is you want to start here. You don't go to these other projects and services operator. You go there to access Cadima. Okay, and then you go here to create new evidence synthesis, and you can then open or create a project for yourself. Okay, so for today, I have created sort of a sample or a test one. So here is the Stellenbosch University Library Research Week one that I've created for today. So when you go into Cadima, this is what you'll see. Then you can start with your setting, right? So the primary investigator, the PI, or the person that's going to do the review will be the primary investigator who will create this project. You can give it your title. You can say it's in progress. You can hide it so long that other people can't see it. Then between the two, systematic reviews, this is what's developed for a systematic review, but you can also go for the evidence map if you want to then do a scoping review. I'll advise maybe to go for the evidence map one. And then here with your question type, I've already indicated that it's a PICO one because of the systematic review. And then here, other people that is going to be part of your project is going to help you with the screening. They need to have a Cadima account also. They need to create an account in Cadima as well. And then you can then add them as part of your project team. And the way you're doing it, you can just type in any surname or name. It will come up. So yeah, and then you just add the person as part of your project team. Now you'll notice that at the bottom of each of these pages for Cadima, you have the next step in Cadima that you have to do. So you can either click that one, or you can go to the left, and this you can use this navigation here on the left as well. So either or, you come up to the next stage of what you need to do in Cadima. So proceeding with the literature search. So I've done the literature searches already. So how do you add? So the idea here is that for each of the databases that you've done, so for each of the databases that you have searched, you're going to export the results. So all the results. So whether you find 500 articles or 600 articles or 1,000 articles, all of those needs to be exported as a RIS file. So you can see Cadima only works with RIS files. And then what you then do is for each of these databases, you will need to create a search string. Okay, so like I did here, so you'll see here, I'm going to highlight it here under the database name for Scopus, and there's one for Web of Science. Okay, so I'm just going to create a new search string. So you put your search string in there. I will just put the search string, a general one in there for all the databases. It doesn't matter. And then here you can identify what database it is. And then here is just the date on the day that you have uploaded the file, and you click on finish, and then it will then come in here. Okay. Then what you do is you will then need to upload that specific file to the name of the database here. So for Scopus, I have 10 articles, so I've uploaded the file here. So the 10 articles came up here, and the same for Web of Science. I had 7 articles, and those 7 articles came in here as part of the Web of Science results that I've put to. Then what you do is you need to highlight on the left-hand side, you need to highlight all of the databases. So if I have 5 or 6 databases in here, you highlight all of them, and then you select the deduplication. So what Cadima is going to do, Cadima is going to try and eliminate the duplications for you. Okay, and just like any other tool, it depends on the format of the articles. So some of the articles format, I'm talking about the physical article, the PDF that you have, those are in different formats. So I like to use the, excuse me, the example of ResearchGate. So if you look at the ResearchGate, and this is to EndNote and reference managers as well. So if you look at the ResearchGate, ResearchGate has got a cover page as the first page of the article. So it's challenging for these tools to find the data of the author, the title, and all of those things on the first page. So in that instance, it can't read all the data on there. So then you find a high number of duplicates that you have to for yourself have to take care of. And in that instance, Cadima will then give you color-coded information. So let's just say we display the merge. So you'll see that from here, so this record that you see here, which is 0, this is the one that you need to get to 0. Okay, that one must be 0. That is Cadima has identified as potential duplicates. So if you go down the list here, you can then look at all the orange, which the references that is highlighted in orange, and that you need to then either delete out of Cadima, or you add them depending on how many duplicates you have for that one specific article. Okay, and if you can see here, so there's a delete button, and there's a key button, so that you'll find next to each of the articles here if there are duplicates. Okay, you'll find that next to each of the articles. At the moment, I don't have any duplicates. Right, so Cadima, and then you will then take care of the duplicates. The abstract with the green mark only means there is an abstract. The red cross means there is no abstract. You can add the abstract if you want to. If you deem that specific article is important and you want to include it, you can then add the abstract as well. So this is the list of articles that have been included. So there you can see all 17 of my articles have been included. Right, so if we go to the next stage on the left-hand side, we're going to come to study selection, right? So this becomes important that you're going to apply the criteria. So if you look at the criteria list and keywords, so here you'll notice that there's title abstract here. Okay, I'm moving my mouse so you can see that is title abstract. So for the title abstract, you have to apply the criteria. Now remember, this is your including criteria. Okay, or the criteria of what you're going to screen the articles for your title abstract. And then here you can then put it in. So for the population, the intervention, the comparator, and the outcome, you can add your criteria over there. And you do the same for the full text. You can add your criteria there. And here the last one is keywords. You will then can add keywords and you can color code them. You can add as many keywords as you want, because that will then in the title abstract, when you screen them, and in the full text, it will highlight the keywords for you as you go along. Right, you can do the consistency check. It is recommended that you do that. There you can, here you can then add your members, how many people you want to have to screen, all of those. So it's important sometimes just to read on top here and what you can do there by the consistency check. Okay, so I've done this. So here you can see the results from the consistency check. So I've screened this morning with my colleague Elvina, and here you can see we both of us have indicated for the criteria that all of these articles are deemed to go to the next stage. So we have done sort of a consistency check this morning. Right, so if we apply the criteria, here you can say for the title abstract, you're going to screen 100% of all the articles because you want to screen 100%. And here you indicate how many people you want to be a part of the screening process. And then you start on the left-hand side, you're going to go and start with your screening. All right, so I've done the screening already. And I've included 3 articles, as you can see. So from the green, because of time, I'm not going to go into much detail, but because the green ones are the ones that I've included, the red ones was the ones that I have excluded. All right, so this is a title abstract stage. Okay. Then if you go to the full text, the 3 green ones that I have included, they are there. Remember, I've only included 3 from the title abstract. I've screened them now at the full text stage, and I've only included 2 articles at the full text stage. Right, and of one I've deleted because there was I couldn't find the full text for that one, so I've deleted that one. Right, so what you then do is you've identified these 2 articles. Excuse me. There's data in those 2 articles, right, that you're going to use in your research. You've identified this data because you've read through the whole article, and that's important that you've identified those articles, that there is data in those articles. Okay, here you're going to add the articles to your study, and here you're going to start with the data extraction process. So what you're going to do, you're going to define the critical appraisal. So here, all you have to do here, and this is for systematic reviews only, it's not for scoping reviews. You're going to look at the bias. So they give you, excuse me, instances of what biases to look at in your for the article. So those articles that you've included, you're going to look at those biases there, and then you're going to actually extract the data. Now, what's happening here? So you'll see from here. Cadima has predefined columns that you've identified. So number 1 is your comments. So if you added any comments as you go along, Cadima has identified that. For each article that you've uploaded in Cadima right at the beginning, Cadima has added an ID for that, number 1 or number 2, number 3, or whatever the case may be. If you've added the ID for a specific study, that's internal. You can see the comments here. These are all internal for you. But what's important is Cadima has extracted the author from the article. So number 4, 5, and 6 becomes very important. the publication here and the title of the article. So that's Cadima has already done that. But if you want to add more columns, you go to the right-hand side here, columns to be defined by user. Okay, and what I've done is I've added columns like study design, your age, gender, review type, AI tools, and all of those. Okay, because when I go back to the articles now, I want to extract the data and populate these columns with the data that I found in there. So when I go to perform data extraction, okay, it's going to give me these two articles that I've identified. When I open an article, you'll see this is the columns that I've added into Cadima. Here you have the PDF. It's advisable that you have, whether it's online or in print, it doesn't matter. You have those articles available, and you can identify then, okay, this in what country this was the study done? Was it a qualitative study? So you add all of these data in here. Okay, and then when you're done with all of these for each of the articles you have included, you're going to go to the critical appraisal. This is only for systematic reviews. For scoping reviews, you don't need to do that. Okay, but why are you doing those columns that I've talked about? Because there's two things that Cadima, and what is important for you for systematic reviews and scoping reviews, what Cadima is going to do for you. And that is right at the end when you're presenting data results. So if you click on the last step there, Cadima has now done this flow diagram for you, where it indicated how many articles you have initially uploaded right at the beginning, how many was duplicates, how many articles did you screen a title abstract, how many, and this is what you need as part of your PRISMA statement, that you need to have a PRISMA flow diagram for your systematic review, but also for your scoping review. And the other thing is next to the flow diagram. So this is the live one that Cadima always update as you go along in Cadima. Okay, then you can this will be the live one. So this will always be updated. But what you can do is right at the end is here's the data files next to the flow diagram. So the two things that I would say from all of these, Cadima has now reports on the right hand side that you can download. Here you can see there's the flow diagram in the docx file. That is the one pager that you can download. You can add it to your article or your project. But what I would like you to highlight is the data extraction file, which is the second last one, and it's an Excel spreadsheet. So when you open that Excel spreadsheet, and you've populated for each of the articles in there, then Cadima will then have all of these data in your Excel spreadsheet that you can use. So when you type your article or your research project, then you have all of these data in here, and you can also present this data as part of your discussion or your outcomes or whatever, because you need to have a column or a table in your research that highlights all of these, and then everything is here for you available. So yeah, in a nutshell, that is it. Yeah. So I'd like to then leave some time for questions. I've seen there's a couple of questions, but as you can see from a systematic review, scoping review, the search, this is only the search part, which is an important part of your systematic or scoping review. We haven't touched on the whole systematic or scoping review, but yeah, I just wanted to highlight some of the things for your search and also demonstrate to you a tool that you can use called Cadima. Okay.
Thank you, Joseph. Yusuf, there's just a question, first of all, are there any studies where AI was used in searching for articles?
I think if you look at the presentation, there are one of those articles speak to searching, but I would rather advise that the person go and read those articles for themselves, because I don't want to say it is a good thing or a bad thing. And we all know AI is here to stay, and how you, but for me personally, it's just that you need to understand in how to use AI and what it can do for you. But also tomorrow, maybe ask the experts in the field, maybe if they know of anything from their side.
The next one is the Cadima process similar to exporting to Excel?
I would say if you're comfortable in manually doing it in Excel, it's the same as I would say for using a referencing tool that you, if you want to, you can then maybe do your referencing manually. It's not advisable. So, but the same with Cadima. So Cadima, in terms of the flow diagram, just you can give evidence that how you've done your research is transparent, that and it is sort of part of the, if you look at the Prisma checklist that you have to follow, you need to give evidence of each and every step that you do. The one thing about using the tool, it's sort of take out that human element, that you make a mistake in terms of looking for duplicates or identifying articles. It also saves you time. But if you're comfortable in using an Excel to do all of those things, then by all means use it. The tool is just a bit faster, and it's also a great place where you can store all your stuff that you can go back on and see how you've done it.
Okay, from Bridget Westerman. I'm doing a hybrid review, being scoping and narrative review for an interdisciplinary study. Can you advise what is a better framework to use, or can I develop a combination framework, or must I check in with my two supervisors?
Yeah, I would advise that rather talk to your supervisors, which of those would be best to use, because as I said earlier, it all relates back to your question. Rather look at your question and see which of the frameworks, there's one slide there, fits best in with your research question, and that will sort of guide you. Because I'm going to give you an answer and it might not be the right one. But I think when the three of you sit and then maybe look at all of the other frameworks and just see which one will best fit your research question.
Dr. Kapamwe, he says, can we have the presenter's comments on the key structure of a systematic review paper? And rather than Cadima, it would have been better to elaborate the use of Excel to import various searches since it's free.
For the first part, because this was today's, as I said earlier, right at the beginning, the session for today was rather about the searching part of the whole systematic scoping review. The key structures of a systematic review paper, I would, if you look at your proposal, sorry, your protocol, a lot of those elements that you have in your protocol, you can carry over into your systematic review paper, and then you can maybe just add things in there, but also look at other systematic review papers. And the last thing I would say about that is also look at okay, the paper is just for your your thesis or your dissertation, then it's fine. But if you're going to publish, then you must then also look at the publishers, the guides in how you're going to publish the paper in there as well. In terms of the Cadima one, I'm not quite sure what the question is there. It would have been better to elaborate using Excel. I'm not sure, but maybe just related to the earlier answer that I gave is if you feel comfortable with Excel, then you use that. But the Cadima, as I say, is a tool that can assist you with all of those step by step, that you don't miss any steps for your either systematic or scoping review in getting the diagram and getting the data out of the articles.
Okay, how does Ryan compare to Cadima for writing systematic review?
They're all the same. As I said earlier, my understanding. So with Ryan, it's also free. You can systematic review and scoping reviews. But when you sort of within Ryan want to go deeper in and you want to add certain look at certain other elements for your scoping or systematic review, then it asks you to then have to register and pay. With Cadima, you can do all of those things and it's free. And you, as I've demonstrated now, you can see most of the things in there, what you're getting out of Cadima. You don't have to pay any money, but the flow diagram and the Excel, all of those reports that you get out of Cadima. For me personally, it's a good tool.
An interesting one, seeing that we're going to hear about EndNote tomorrow, EndNote 25. Can you import from EndNote file into Cadima to do the screening process?
So I would directly out of your database search. So when you get your results from the database, export it as a RIS file. So that file you can then save somewhere in your computer, and you don't actually need EndNote to export into Cadima. You can directly then upload those RIS files into Cadima. So you don't need the EndNote or anything else to do that. The only database at the moment that is a bit problematic with that is PubMed, because out of PubMed they don't give you an option to export any files. It's only the PubMed and I think Excel, but it doesn't allow you to do RIS or for that matter. Then I would suggest then use EndNote for that. So you export your results as a PubMed file. In that PubMed file you upload into EndNote and then convert it into a RIS file and then upload it into Cadima. That's the only database I know that is problematic at the moment.
There's a question from Mrs. Jones or Miss Jones, I can't see. Can you go back to include an article you screened out previously in Cadima?
So when you screen, you're going to screen title abstract. So I'm just going to maybe talk to the two. So you screen title abstract. Once you screen and you eliminate it, or you deem that article is not part of your including criteria, and you sort of excluded that article, then it's excluded from the next stage. Okay, so the next stage will then be your full text stage. So at the full text stage, you can then, so I take it from there that if you want to add, maybe go back and then add it. So it depends on if you're at the full text stage. So at the full text stage, you might want to, I haven't come across it yet, but you might be able to do it. But once you've done the full text and you've done with the screening, then I don't think you can add any more, because you then sort of done with because when you screen and you're done with the screening, then Cadima will indicate you're done. There's no more articles to screen. But in the essence of you wanting now to add something back, I'll have to check with the Cadima people if that is possible. But also in terms of the methodology in doing that, I'm not sure if that is permissible. on the other part, yeah. But I would say when you're done the screening, it's important, and also that's why you have the independent screening, 2 people screening, and if there's inconsistencies, then the third person will come in and intervene in terms of which articles to include, to exclude. So once that process is done, I think the process is done. You can't then go back because there was 3 people screening that, and you made your choices going forward.
Okay, Yusuf, interesting here. Can Cadima perform risk of bias assessment for systematic review?
I would, you can use a tool for that. I know there's tools out there for risk of bias, but you can, as I showed earlier, there are an option for you to do the risk of bias yourself, where you go through the articles, and you can always apply the tool to that, and also then add it into Cadima. But for systematic reviews, I would maybe use a tool. I know there's a lot of tools out there for systematic review, risk of bias, but there is an option in Cadima for that as well, where you can identify, but then you do it yourself instead of using a tool for that. Yeah.
Okay, from Mr. Demisi, how can you use PCC and context phenomena of interest and population?
Can you repeat that for me?
Okay, Dr. Demisi, he wrote, how can you use PCC and context phenomena of interest and population? I assume that some criteria.
Yeah, so the framework, is basically then either PCC, then you use the population, the concept, and the context. So that is what is described by the JBI. But I'm not sure if you can change that. So I'm a bit unclear about where does the context, phenomena, or interest and population come in, because the framework is clear that you use that framework for a scoping review. So if you're going to use a PCC, then that will then pertain to a scoping review. The others would then be some part of the other frameworks that you can maybe look at. Yeah, I will maybe answer it like that.
Okay, Elizabeth answered Ms. Shakawa question. So, is there anybody on here that wants to put up their hand and ask a question? We've got 2 minutes left.
Hi, this is Neeta here.
Hi.
Give an excellent session. I wanted to ask you about the scoping review protocol for approval before we started. Thank you.
As far as I know, there's no approval with the Open Science Framework for scoping reviews. You just upload your protocol there, and then once it's uploaded, then it's sort of registered with Open Science Framework. So anybody else that goes in there and check if something has already been used will then come across your protocol, and then you can start with your actual scoping review, with the whole process. Yeah. So that's my understanding of it. There's no person sitting at Open Science Framework and approves it. It's just that you have to upload it, and then you can start. Then it's sort of registered.
Okay. If there aren't any other questions, we come to the end of the webinar. You're welcome to contact Yusuf if you have any questions. And as you've heard from Kirchner, the webinar will be made available on our YouTube channel to watch again. Anything from you, Kirchner? Okay. Kirchner is not maybe occupied elsewhere. So thank you for attending. Okay, we've got one question. Okay, thanks a lot. So thank you for attending and have a good day and a safe journey home.